Chumlee's life has always unfolded in front of millions of viewers, but what most people saw on television was only part of his reality. Behind that easygoing and humorous personality the audience grew to love, there was a man quietly struggling with personal battles. Away from the bright lights and laughter of Pawn Stars, Chumlee fought with his health, enduring endless cycles of dieting, gaining the weight back, and feeling trapped in frustration. At one point, his weight reached 350 pounds, a breaking point that forced him to make a life-changing decision. And now, once again, the latest news about Chumlee is making headlines. Chumlee's journey began in Henderson, Nevada, where he was born Austin Lee Russell on September 8, 1982. He grew up as one of 3 children alongside his brother Sage and sister Tara, coming from a richly mixed family heritage that included Mexican, Scottish, and Native American roots. The nickname that would one day make him a household name came early in life. When Austin was just 12 years old, the father of a family friend jokingly said he looked like Chumlee the Walrus, a goofy character from the classic cartoon Tennessee Tuxedo. The nickname stuck, and Austin embraced it. He even started introducing himself as Chumlee, laughing at how he had become known by the name of a clumsy sidekick. Long before the fame and fortune that came with television, Chumlee had already planted roots at the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop. His lifelong friendship with Corey Big Hoss Harrison connected him to the Harrison family, who had founded the shop back in 1989. Spending so much time around Corey and the pawn business, it was only natural that Chumlee began working there in his 20s. Even before the cameras started rolling, he had built a reputation for being the unpredictable one in the shop. Funny, lovable, and sometimes prone to unforgettable mistakes. One such story became legendary among fans and co-workers alike. A customer once pawned a rare upright bass for $700, expecting to reclaim it later. But Chumlee accidentally leaned the instrument against a shelf and walked away. Moments later, it came crashing to the floor, shattering beyond repair. The replacement cost was an eye-popping $20,000. When questioned, Chumlee could only admit that he didn't know what he was thinking. The blunder followed him online, sparking debate about whether his on-screen persona was real or exaggerated. By the time the History Channel came knocking, looking for a cast to bring the pawn shop to life on television, Chumlee had already worked there for 5 years. When producers sought a 4th personality to join Rick, Corey, and Richard Old Man Harrison, Chumlee saw an opportunity. Out of about a dozen employees, he volunteered. Later, he explained that he understood what the show needed. The Harrisons provided expertise and business savvy, but it needed humor and lighthearted energy to keep audiences entertained. Chumlee chose to be the comic relief, relying on his natural camaraderie with the Harrisons and treating the cameras like they weren't even there. That decision paid off. He became one of the most recognizable faces in reality television. Behind the laughter, however, lay moments of deep personal pain. Just 2 weeks before Pawn Stars premiered in 2009, Chumlee's father, a skilled woodworker, passed away from pancreatic cancer. The loss hit him hard, and the items his father crafted remain among his most prized possessions, ones he has said he would never pawn for any amount of money. When Pawn Stars debuted on July 19, 2009, it quickly became a worldwide sensation. Viewers were fascinated not only by the intriguing artifacts and collectibles, but also by the larger-than-life personalities behind the counter. And right in the center of it all, often the punchline but always the heart, was Chumlee. As the years went on, other cast members evolved before viewers' eyes. Corey Harrison, for example, matured from an inexperienced worker into a sharp, business-minded expert. Chumlee, however, remained largely the same on screen, the comedic underdog who always seemed to make mistakes. This portrayal began to spark debate among fans online. On Reddit, a user named Commodore Blair 89 voiced irritation with Chumlee's antics, only to be met with pushback from others who reminded them that much of Pawn Stars was scripted. Still, many agreed that the show often underestimated Chumlee's real abilities. Another user pointed out that he had often asked for more responsibility behind the scenes, but his efforts were mostly ignored. A fan named The Real Tina even noted the inconsistency in his portrayal. In one episode, he'd appear clueless, and in another, he'd demonstrate surprising knowledge about rare collectibles. This contradiction has followed Chumlee for years. While many view him as the show's lovable fool, there have been countless times when his expertise has shone through. Outside of the cameras, he's proven to be far more capable than most people realize. He once admitted that early in his career he fell for several fake Rolex scams during late-night shifts at the pawn shop. After being tricked multiple times, he learned to either wake Corey or Rick for approval, or simply walk away from risky deals. These hard lessons became his true education in the pawn business. Even Rick Harrison, the show's veteran leader, wasn't immune to mistakes. In one memorable episode, Rick ignored Chumlee's warning about a set of Norman Rockwell dolls and paid $300 for them, only to find out later they were worth just $250. For once, the tables had turned. Chumlee got to enjoy a rare moment of triumph, proving that even the boss could be wrong. It wasn't about the money. It was about showing he had insight and could hold his own in a business full of risks. But life outside the shop would soon take a darker turn. Known for his unpredictable personality, Chumlee suddenly found himself at the center of a headline-making incident in Hollywood. One weekend, while standing beside his Rolls-Royce with friends on Hollywood Boulevard, a man approached and demanded a ride. When the group refused, the situation escalated. The stranger grew aggressive and even threatened to pull a gun. Fearing for their safety, one of Chumlee's friends punched the man, knocking him to the ground. The aftermath, caught on video, showed the man dazed and bleeding as Chumlee and his crew drove away. Chumlee later claimed the altercation was pure self-defense, though the full outcome of the incident remains unclear. If that wasn't strange enough, Chumlee soon became the target of several death hoaxes. False reports of his passing spread rapidly across the internet. In 2013, one site claimed he had died from a marijuana overdose, a medically impossible cause. Less than a year later, another fake story alleged he had suffered a fatal heart attack. Ironically, these rumors circulated while he was actively improving his health and losing weight. Instead of getting angry, Chumlee took it in stride, laughing off the gossip and proving he was still very much alive. However, the most serious chapter of his life came in March 2016. When Las Vegas police raided his home following a sexual assault investigation. What officers discovered went far beyond their expectations. Reports described a room in his house known as the Chum Chum Room, complete with a stripper pole. Police found a baggie with white residue and a rolled-up dollar bill with powder traces. As they searched deeper, they uncovered a dozen firearms, some loaded, some unregistered, and large amounts of paraphernalia suggesting more than personal use. When investigators requested access to his safes, Chumlee initially hesitated but eventually complied, admitting they contained marijuana and weapons. He claimed the stash was for personal use only, but his admission that he was a heavy smoker created another legal issue. Under Nevada law, drug users cannot legally possess firearms. This led police to secure an additional warrant to seize his guns. The search ultimately uncovered methamphetamine, marijuana, and evidence suggesting possible distribution, including digital scales and baggies. What began as a routine investigation had spiraled into a scandal that shocked fans and cast a long shadow over the beloved Pawn Star's personality. From laughter behind the counter to controversy in the headlines, Chumlee's life has been a roller coaster of fame, mistakes, lessons, and resilience. Beneath the humor that made him famous lies a man who continues to fight for redemption. One day, one challenge, and one headline at a time. Investigators were able to tie every piece of evidence directly back to Austin Chumlee Russell. Inside his bedroom and the private vault, police discovered personal items that unmistakably identified him as the owner. When the findings were presented, the situation became grave. Chumlee was taken into custody and booked into the Clark County Detention Center, facing an intimidating array of charges: possession of methamphetamine, possession of more than 1 ounce of marijuana, 17 counts related to various controlled substances, and a weapons charge for being a prohibited person in possession of a firearm. The sheer amount of evidence made the case even more severe. Detectives worked closely with the district attorney's office, determined to move the investigation forward. They even obtained a warrant for Chumlee's blood to determine if he was under the influence at the time of his arrest. Ultimately, authorities revealed that he was facing a total of 19 drug-related charges plus one weapons charge. Despite the serious allegations, Chumlee didn't remain behind bars for long. He managed to post a hefty $62,000 bail and walked free. The next significant court date was set for May 23, 2016, a day many believed would determine the scope of potential prison time Chumlee might face. Legal experts who spoke to outlets such as Hollywood Life speculated that with nearly 20 charges on record, his sentence could stretch as high as 80 years in prison. While that number sounded extreme, it highlighted the serious nature of the situation. Yet behind the mountain of charges, the darker cloud looming over Chumlee was the sexual assault complaint that initially led to the raid on his home. The woman who filed it remained anonymous, and although no sexual assault charges had been officially filed, police confirmed that the investigation was still open. According to a police report cited by USA Today, investigators had seized several items from Chumlee's residence, including clothing, bedding, and even a DNA sample as part of the ongoing inquiry. Chesnoff, standing firm in his client's defense, stated that Chumlee was prepared to fight any additional charges should they arise. If the sexual assault accusations ever became formal, his legal troubles could increase dramatically. Meanwhile, the History Channel remained silent about his future on Pawn Stars. The network made no public comments about his status, and insiders told People magazine that producers were simply waiting for the justice system to take its course. Since filming had already wrapped on several episodes, there was no immediate pressure to make a decision about his role. However, if Russell were convicted, removing him from the show would be the network's most logical step. Television history has shown that scandals of this magnitude often force networks to act swiftly. Even without a conviction, the fact that Chumlee was facing 20 different charges gave the History Channel good reason to reconsider its association with him. If sexual assault charges were ever filed, it was almost certain that the network would publicly sever ties. This placed history in a delicate position. Pawn Stars, since its debut in 2009, had become one of the network's biggest successes, a flagship program with consistently high ratings. Chumlee's comedic and easygoing personality had been a cornerstone of that success. Now, his scandal jeopardized the entire show. If the charges stuck, the network could opt for a quiet transition, phasing Chumlee out, offering a brief on-air explanation for his absence, and moving forward with the remaining cast or new additions. Yet the sexual assault allegations carried a heavier stigma that could devastate the show's reputation entirely. Other networks had faced similar crises. TLC, for example, abruptly canceled Here Comes Honey Boo Boo after revelations surfaced about Mama June's connection to a convicted offender. The same network also terminated 19 Kids and Counting following Josh Duggar's abuse scandal. History Channel executives understood the stakes well and chose a cautious route, remaining silent and letting the legal process play out. Eventually, rather than risk a lengthy trial, Chumlee and his legal team struck a plea deal that reshaped his fate. He pled guilty to a felony weapons charge, unlawful possession of a firearm, and a gross misdemeanor for attempted drug possession. This agreement spared him prison time but came with strict conditions, 3 years of probation and mandatory counseling. The deal also carried a stern warning. If he violated the terms of his probation, he would face between 2 and 5 years in prison. On the other hand, if he successfully completed probation by 2019, the felony would be dismissed, leaving only the misdemeanor on his record. It was a second chance, but one that required discipline and restraint. Attorney David Chesnoff expressed relief over the outcome, calling it a thoughtful resolution that satisfied both sides. Most importantly, authorities confirmed that Chumlee had been cleared of the sexual assault complaint that originally triggered the raid. The details of his court-ordered counseling weren't made public, though records linked the sessions to a social worker specializing in cases involving sexual misconduct. As part of the agreement, Chumlee was also required to surrender all illegal substances and weapons found in his possession. police had confiscated nearly 5 ounces of marijuana stored in jars and plastic bags, including a single Ziploc bag containing over 4 ounces. They also discovered Xanax and methamphetamine. His firearms collection was extensive, including handguns, a shotgun, and several rifles, among them an MP5 and a .223 caliber rifle, some of which were unregistered. Chesnoff emphasized that the weapons were not intended for criminal use and acknowledged that his client now understood the legal restrictions surrounding marijuana. Despite the legal turmoil, Chumlee managed to keep his place on Pawn Stars. While the History Channel stayed silent, his colleagues stood by him. Rick Harrison, his boss and co-star, publicly stated that the shop was supporting Chumlee through the ordeal. Corey Harrison, his close friend, expressed quiet solidarity through cryptic social media posts referencing loyalty, truth, and Nevada's gun laws. For Chumlee, the plea deal was a wake-up call. It gave him one final opportunity to rebuild his life. The dropped sexual assault allegations meant he avoided the most damaging potential outcome, and probation allowed him to continue working while focusing on rehabilitation. Rather than disappearing from public view, Chumlee made a surprising comeback, and this time, for positive reasons. In 2022, Austin Lee Russell shocked fans by revealing a massive personal transformation. He had lost an astonishing 160 pounds. Having struggled with obesity for years, his achievement marked one of the most inspiring chapters of his life. Chumlee, a fan favorite since Pawn Stars premiered in 2009, had long battled his weight in the public eye. In an interview with TMZ, he admitted that years of failed diets had left him exhausted and determined to make lasting changes. His close friend, Corey Harrison, who had previously lost nearly 200 pounds through lap band surgery and lifestyle changes, inspired him to follow a similar path. Watching Corey's journey gave Chumlee the motivation he needed. He revealed to People magazine that he dropped from 320 pounds to 225 pounds through diet and portion control. However, after years of fluctuations that saw his weight reach 350 pounds again, he opted for a more permanent solution. In January 2019, Chumlee underwent gastric sleeve surgery at a bariatric clinic in Las Vegas. The procedure drastically reduced his stomach size, which helped control his appetite and kick-started dramatic weight loss. Within months, he dropped from 350 to about 190 pounds. Yet he emphasized that surgery was only part of the process. The true battle was mental. Learning to manage cravings and maintain discipline became a lifelong commitment. To sustain his progress, Chumlee adopted a balanced diet, consistent exercise, and an overall healthier lifestyle. He began sharing his transformation online, posting motivational messages and before and after photos to encourage fans struggling with their own health goals. His social media pages became a source of inspiration for many, as he celebrated losing over 150 pounds and spoke openly about self-discipline, confidence, and persistence. His weight loss opened new doors, both physically and emotionally. He could now enjoy activities that were once off-limits, like riding a hovercraft, something he previously couldn't do due to weight limits. By 2021, his transformation was obvious to fans, but more importantly, it changed how he viewed life itself. The man, once known primarily for controversy and comic relief on television, had reinvented himself through resilience, accountability, and determination. In many ways, Chumlee's journey became a story of redemption, a comeback not just in fame, but in health, mindset, and personal growth. After years of public scrutiny, he emerged stronger, quieter, and more grounded, focusing on wellness and gratitude rather than headlines. His transformation wasn't just about losing weight, it was about reclaiming his life. Chumlee's transformation didn't just mark a physical change. It represented a deep personal rebirth. After the storm of legal troubles and public embarrassment, he began focusing on inner peace, discipline, and gratitude. Fans who had once viewed him as the funny, carefree pawnshop sidekick now saw a man who had matured through hardship. His weight loss journey became symbolic of something greater, the idea that it's never too late to rebuild yourself, no matter how public your struggles have been. With his new outlook, Chumlee started using his platform to spread positivity. On social media, he often posted encouraging notes to fans, urging them not to give up on their health or happiness. He reminded people that setbacks didn't define them. Their ability to stand back up did. His transparency about the highs and lows of surgery, recovery, and lifestyle adjustments made his story relatable to thousands. He didn't pretend that the road was easy. Instead, he talked openly about discipline, temptation, and the mental strength it took to sustain change. Professionally, his renewed image also gave Pawn Stars a boost. While the show had once been shadowed by controversy, Chumlee's comeback added a fresh layer of humanity and inspiration to its long-running appeal. Fans who had doubted his return were surprised to see him back in the shop, healthier and more confident than ever. His humor remained, but there was a noticeable sense of maturity in how he carried himself. Viewers who had watched him since 2009 could clearly see that the man once surrounded by scandal had grown into someone who valued peace, balance, and personal growth. Beyond television, Chumlee also began exploring new ventures. He became more active in community projects and small business ventures around Las Vegas. Fans spotted him attending local events, taking photos with supporters, and engaging in motivational talks. He also hinted at wanting to open his own business someday, possibly related to fitness, collectibles, or motivation. A clear sign of how far he had come from his earlier days of chaos. More importantly, Chumlee's transformation reminded viewers that fame doesn't shield anyone from personal demons. His battles with addiction, legal issues, and health challenges painted the picture of a man who had faced the consequences of his choices, but decided not to let them define his future. The same public eye that once judged him for his mistakes now admired him for his courage to change. By the time 2023 rolled around, Chumlee had become almost unrecognizable compared to his earlier years on Pawn Stars. His face looked slimmer, his posture more confident, and his interviews carried a tone of humility and gratitude. He credited his success not just to surgery, but to a complete lifestyle overhaul, cutting out old habits, surrounding himself with positive influences, and prioritizing mental health as much as physical fitness. Today, Chumlee stands as one of reality television's rare comeback stories. From a man nearly destroyed by scandal and poor choices to someone who found strength through accountability, his journey offers an unexpected lesson in redemption. It's a reminder that even when the world turns its back, the power to rebuild lies within. For fans who've followed Pawn Stars since its beginning, watching Chumlee's evolution feels almost like witnessing a friend turn their life around. His story, once a tabloid headline, has become one of inspiration, a testament to how change, when driven by genuine intent, can transform not just how others see you, but how you see yourself.